Today, Jan Leeming, a broadcasting legend.
I think we've both got a bit of a crush on her.
I am.
We?
She's in her 80s.
And she's...
looks like she's in her 60s, would you say?
Yes, and she's had 5 marriages. I couldn't even get to 2. Come
find...
on, let's get some tips.
Well, she must have some tips for us.
I just want to get out of here.
Jan Leeming, welcome to Suddenly Single. We did a little introduction about you earlier on, and we both said that we had a bit of a crush on you.
Yes, we've both got a crush on you.
What? Yeah. Well, you know, you're the Rolls Royce
icon
of presenters, and you're an icon.
Oh.
And could we say the elephant in the room that you're over 70? Can we say that you're, look fantastic?
Thank you. I'm nearly 83.
80 that is staggering, I have to say.
I have to say that because my birthday is January.
Is it
so
really?
I'm closer to 83 than 82.
Wow.
Can I say you are my Elizabeth Taylor? Because I've always wanted to get married about 7 times.
Oh, shush.
No, you managed it 5. So
Oh,
you
shush.
are my icon on that. So we need to chat about that.
But I tell you what, all right, there's many reasons for that, and I do get cross about it. But I might be like Elizabeth Taylor, but I don't have the diamonds.
Oh, well, none of us have got the diamonds.
I think I read quite a long interview that you did with the Broadsheet where you said that, some of those marriages weren't long marriages. It was just something that happened and you moved on, but it was a marriage, but not in the sense of it being a 10-year marriage, a 10-year marriage, a 10-year marriage.
No, because you see, I'm old-fashioned, and I will own up to 3, and that's a zircon, not a diamond, and I bought it myself. I'll own up to 3 men that I truly loved. First marriage, I was very unhappy at home, and I could never say this in the press because I loved my father very much and my mother, and I didn't want to hurt him. And, there was a stepmother, etc. So first one, forget it. And he hit me and I walked out. So that was 6 months. I thought, I'm getting out before I get pregnant. Mm-hmm. And then 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, I loved them. Last one. Terrible state after the love of my life left me. I was on Prozac, I was being counselled, I was in a dreadful place. And I did the most stupid thing of my life. I married in haste, and my goodness, did I repent at leisure.
So it was a rebound kind of...
Oh, yes. I mean, it was stupid. My sister said, don't do it. My friend said, what the hell are you doing? Really? It wasn't financial because no man has ever kept me. I've never had a lot of money, but I'm a Capricorn. I'm careful. I've always had a roof over my head, albeit rented, usually. But emotionally, I'm a man's woman. I like being part of a couple. I'm a nurturer. I love running a home. I love entertaining, cooking. I have to say now, I've been single so long, I wish I weren't, but I don't think I could do 24/7 anymore.
Really?
No.
What do you think? How long have you been single, and what do you think you've learnt in this period of being single?
I've been single since the last marriage broke up, which was 2000.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
What have I learnt? Well, I've been on so many dating sites, not for the last 8-9 years. I'm far too old now. Because you see...
Wow, hold on. We don't interrupt guests, but that's ridiculous.
Older men want a younger woman. And frankly, on that premise, I should be looking at someone of 100. Yuck.
What about younger men?
Well, I wouldn't mind going younger, but I'm not a cougar. The youngest I've been out with was somebody I met through a dating site. And I was, he was 16 years younger and kept, age doesn't matter. And that was a really, really unfortunate affair. He turned out to be a total narcissist, and I'd never come across that before. So, I mean, I've been cheated on and many, many, many times, and there were signs, but it was when he addressed himself in the third person. Which I mean, sometimes people can, but that, I thought, that's odd. And he was acting strangely, like we'd see each other, and it would never be, well, I'll see you next Friday. It was all, I was kind of sitting there like the little dog, when am I going to get my next meal? But because there was another woman, as there usually is with me. So eventually I knocked that on the head. That was 8, 9 years ago. And narcissists pull you back. It's very interesting because I would get an email saying, oh, I see, probably looking at Twitter, X, oh, I see you're having a good time. You've obviously moved on. And I would write back and say, no, that friend was gay. And I thought, he did that several times until finally I realised what he was doing, reeling me. And I thought, no, the cost of having you in my life was just too much. But would you believe, now that was at least 8 years ago, I get about every 6 months an email. Darling Janny, I really miss you. And I'm thinking, you what? In the bin.
That's strong of you, though.
Well, not really. I just don't want somebody who is going to... He wasn't worth it. Definitely not worth it.
So do you date now? Have you been on any dates in the last couple of years?
I haven't been on a date for, years. I have met quite a few people, but I haven't done dating sites because, as I said, the older man wants the younger woman. And if you go on an older dating site... I only once lied about my age. It was the very first time, and that was documented because I was 66 and friends said, well, if you're going to do it. And then, I'm 82 now, that was when dating sites were, oh, no, not de rigueur. Now it's the accepted thing. It's where you meet. And I said I was 60. Literally, it was a Friday night. I was feeling very depressed. I got back home and the next day I was going to lunch with a friend, got home and Simon, who looks after me, said, it was an email or I don't know if WhatsApp was around, have you joined a dating site? Because you're going to be on the Express on Monday. So I had to come clean. And honestly, as God is my witness, it's the only time in my life that I've lied about my age because the press will always out you. But I turned it round. The Daily Mail then wanted a piece. And, I was asked questions like, is it dangerous? And I said, well, no more dangerous than being picked up in a pub or at a party. And people lie. Men lie, women lie. So I didn't touch it again for a while. Another one was really funny. I wanted a French man, or at least somebody living in France. I have French ancestry.
Carry on.
I just love French. But this was an Englishman living in France, in Montpellier. And I thought, well, Montpellier is nice. Yeah, okay, fine. So I thought, go for broke. So I bought my ticket and he was going to meet me at the Gare du Nord. So I got there and I got off the train expecting to see this man with a bunch of flowers, and everybody filed past me. I was left on the Gare du Nord.
No.
He never turned up.
Oh, wait. So I thought, I waited for an hour because I thought, well, maybe something happened and he'll come back. Desperately needed the loo. Finally, I went to the loo, came back, nothing. Couldn't get hold of him. So I thought, right, I've got a day in France. I'll go to Montmartre, and I had a book with me, thank goodness. So I went to a restaurant I knew, and I ordered my food, and I sat there reading my book. And then I went to Sacré-Cœur, and I did all sorts of things. And then I got back to the Gare du Nord at 5 o'clock for my train at 6. And he was there. His train wasn't running. Neither of us were very good on the internet and WhatsApps or whatever it was, and neither of us could communicate. However, he was nice. We had a drink together, and there nearly always is with these guys. There was another agenda. I think there was unfinished business, and I've come across that several times with a chap, and you think they're single or they're newly widowed, and they've been widowed for 2 or 3 years, and then they start crying, and you think, well, if that's how you feel, why are you on a dating site?
I just wanted to go back to something you said earlier about cheating. You said you're friends with all of your exes. How long does that take to forgive that? Especially like you've been married to several of these people. I'm presuming that you're talking about.
well, all right. Love of my life left me. I made Rebound Marriage. That fell apart. Love of my life came back into my life. That was 7 years later. But we didn't live together. He saw me at weekends and then he dumped me again. It wasn't nearly as bad. It hurt. But I suppose not after the second dumping. I should never have allowed him back into my life.
But you loved him.
I did love him.
So,
I loved him very much. And when he announced he was leaving me, I said, we can get through this if you want to. And then I was told that out of the 12 years we were together, he was only faithful for 2. But I had no idea. I think it was on Vanessa's podcast when I think you said it, or I don't know, somebody said, but if you've got a happy life, married life, or just living together life, you're not looking.
That was
But
me.
some men are. They might have fillet steak at home, but they're still looking for mincemeat.
Yeah, they are. And because you know it's been for so long, you're just not looking for the signs that are so obvious afterwards.
Can I ask a question? Afterwards, and you date somebody, and then you go, he was a womanizer. And you didn't know that at the time, but when you can put 2 and 2 together afterwards, what can you attribute to why do women like womanizers then? Even if you don't know they're women, what is it, the chemicals that they give off? They're always really up for great
pheromones.
Yeah, exactly. Is that what it is? That they're they're Vikings in bed, and that's what they want to do all the time.
Don't know that, but
well, if you're with them, and they're...
I would suggest it's a combination of things. That definitely being one of them. Yes, they tend to be
pheromones.
Exceptionally good in bed.
Yeah.
There you go.
Blushing.
Well,
Exceptionally good.
But then that overspills so that they're very virile and they want to be out all the time, and that's you have to do the balance of they're going to be.
But you see, having been married so many times, people must think I'm a right raver, but I'm not.
You're just looking for love.
Well, yes, and the pheromone thing. I mean, I've talked about this with female friends. Men don't accept it because I've suggested. Well, I've had dates, and I'm careful. It's coffee.
Yes.
And if it's coffee and you like each other, you can go to lunch. If it's not, you can say, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I've got another appointment." But I know the first time I meet someone whether that could translate into something more, shall we say, intimate.
Yeah. Some of the best sex you can have comes out of intimacy, and intimacy is not something that you can have straight away.
Okay.
You build up into you have to be
Jan
on the same page.
Something else.
But
I mean,
that initial
listen,
spark.
you two ravers go to Ibiza for the weekend.
I will look at someone and think, could I allow you to kiss me? Because again, kissing is very. Was it on this program or something else?
Intimate.
Kissing is very intimate.
Yeah.
Holding hands is very intimate.
Yeah.
I would link arms with a man. Holding hands is very intimate.
What do you miss most of being not in a relationship?
Companionship. Going to the theatre, which I do. I go to the Marlowe in Canterbury. I've got a girlfriend and we go. Not going out to dinner. I mean, I don't go out very much. It is the companionship. Because
we say that a Sunday is quite a big day for missing
someone to
somebody.
do nothing with.
Sunday is
the
horrid.
miss.
And that's why I joined Canterbury Cathedral as a volunteer 13 years ago, because Sundays were just... And I've got a newly widowed friend, and she said, I can't bear Sundays, Jan. I said, I know what you mean, and I've now arranged a dinner party, a lunch party on Sunday in a couple of weeks' time, inviting people she knows, because I know what it's like to be alone. You think everybody else in the world is there with their children and their grandchildren. I've got no grandchildren, and my only son is in Australia.
I think that was one of the hardest things for me, because when I was suddenly single at the beginning of my 50s, my daughter, it coincided with her leaving home. And so for the first time in 50 years, because I came from a family of brothers and sisters, mum and dad, dogs, husbands, kids, sleepovers, to suddenly silence when you walk in the door.
That must be
and
awful.
It gave me a panic attack.
That
I can't
must be
tell you. I
awful.
think that was my first the first guy, who is wonderful, by the way, and we are still friends, I panicked dated him because the fear of being on my own was worse.
Yeah. I've come from a very small family, but at least, you know, when I was married, they were.
Was your dad in the military?
He was,
Yeah.
yes.
So that must have been quite a. Was it a military? So you lived with your father and your sister lived with your mother, and when they separated.
Yes.
Well, that's quite a not unique but unusual dynamic.
And especially then, I mean, all those years ago, divorce was virtually unheard of. And my father took me and my mother took my sister. I was 7, my sister was 1, so we never grew up together. And of course, I asked, why did you split us? And Daddy always said, your mother wouldn't let me have the baby. And Mummy always said, your father wouldn't let me have you. So I never knew. But I adored my father, absolutely adored him. I was 11 when he was sent for military service in Singapore. And he made me a boarder. I hated it. So he asked my mother to come back and look after me.
Do you think your parents' upbringing has altered or affected or influenced your perspective on dating?
Totally. I mean, I adored my father. I like military men. I like a man to be strong, although sometimes those who look strong are not. I'm drawn to that kind of person, and they seem to be drawn to me. And this is why, not wittingly, I've made the same mistake over and over again.
I can imagine that we've talked about your dating and your marriages, but you have had a huge career on television in a very competitive market, especially when you were at the height of what you were doing. Was that intimidating to men at the time, or were you married and were happy being married and concentrated on the rest of your career, so there was no other dating going on?
Well, I was very married, and in fact there were occasionally squillionaires who were interested, but no pheromones. I just wasn't interested.
The pheromone thing is unquantifiable. There
was one, I was at the time single, and I wasn't interested. I was introduced to him by, they're both dead now, Bert Whedon and his wife. Bert Whedon, the man with the golden guitar. Probably your audience are too young to remember. But he took a shine to me. I wasn't interested. I made it quite clear in the end. He was also presumptuous. We've talked about kissing being very intimate. I've been on a couple of dates where the man put the arm around, that's okay, but then, sorry, no. My gay friends introduced me to somebody straight. And second date, my gay friends couldn't understand it. Sorry, that...
He was inappropriate that he went to kiss you at the wrong moment.
Well, especially a French kiss.
Well, you know what? I think that sounds awful, but can I just be the man to you two women there? Yeah. You want somebody that's got pheromones, slightly Viking, throw you over the shoulder, take a... how dare he kiss me?
But I was
men have a, blueprint of which way men goes. It's hard,
I was just
if it was the right man with the right pheromone.
Yeah.
No,
I would.
I may be the age I am, but I'm sorry, a man has got to court me. I don't just jump into bed with someone. Well, I haven't jumped into bed with anybody.
But not jumping into bed, but giving a kiss. He might just think, oh, I'm going to go for it and show I'm dynamic.
I think the thing is it also separates both, because I've been sometimes on 2 or 3 dates and thought, you're a really nice guy. Maybe I should just go again. And the moment they come physically near you and you don't want it, that's when you know, forget it. Forget it.
Yeah. Yeah, so this squillionaire, I made it quite clear. And then there was another woman, younger than I was. He married her. She took him to the cleaners and waltzed off with 4 million. And my son said, oh, Mother, couldn't you have let her thought of England? But I can't. I went to Australia when I was 70, because I tend to go out every decade for my birthday with Jonathan. And I thought...
Because your son, Jonathan, lives in Australia.
Sydney. And I thought, right, I'm going to go for broke. And I went to Trailfinders and said, when I lived in Australia, I was an impecunious actress and I could never go to the Barrier Reef. Now, where could I go? She said, oh, you're on your own. She said, Lizard Island, no children, which is fine. I like children, but not when I'm trying to have a holiday. So this was part of my little package, my sort of farewell gift to myself. And I still had friends in Sydney, most of them now sadly gone. And I went to Lizard Island. It is a place for couples. I had this damn great bed in this beautiful suite, view of the ocean, and it was all inclusive, so you could drink yourself blotto on champagne if you wished.
Sounds
and there
amazing.
was me at dinner, sitting with my book, my dinner, looking at the ocean and thinking, what am I doing here? I did see a lizard. I went for a very early morning walk. So I know that was only a couple of days, but no.
But where would you rather been? In a bunk bed, looking at the car park?
Well, if it was somebody I love.
Yeah, but that's the thing, isn't it? Whoever you're with, it doesn't matter where you are. Now, we have an expert that we'd like to bring in. But personally, I don't see what could be... It's just the situation you're in is hindering you meeting people.
And the fact that, well, as I say, if I went on a dating site, used my real name, don't wish to sound arrogant, but I think there'd be a lot of chances. There'd be a lot of people who think, oh, she's probably rich. Well, I'm far from rich. I do own my little house, but that's about it. So, and perhaps I don't want the disappointment again and again and again.
I think we all get a little bit jaded like that. I feel the same. I haven't had a date now, probably I've gone on a couple of dates, but not a real date for about a year.
Skipping along.
Yeah,
but
because
you're so
you
much
just
younger, I would expect.
But you become jaded. You just think, honestly, I'll be
I
on my own.
I mean, there are some advantages of being single. You know, you do what you like, when you like, how you like.
Starfish.
Starfish. What's
in
that?
bed.
Oh yeah.
You take the
Yes. I
whole
have
bed.
a king size bed, and I roll from side to side.
Yeah.
Yeah, as I said, I couldn't do 24/7 ever again. But, you do what you like, etc. But it is quite lonely. I mean, Christmas,
company for dinner.
my gay friends will always invite me, but Jilly, my sister, is on her own because lots of her friends have died. So it's just the two of us.
Yeah.
You know, and you don't buy presents when you get to a certain age because it's not that we've got everything, but what do you buy unless you're a millionaire and can afford an absolute fortune?
Yeah.
So I'm not sure whether I would do it again. Oh, I did, and I was prepared to take money out of savings. There was it was an introduction site, £10,000, and I thought, I've got rainy day money, I've got savings, I'm going to go for it. They didn't take women over 60.
Well, funnily enough, we did speak to someone from an agency, didn't we?
And we should put you in touch with them.
No, well, it was double the price, and she said, to be honest, it would be difficult to match someone like you because
to you.
Yes, she said, but A, they're looking for younger people, and B, they probably wouldn't like somebody who's a journalist because you might.
That's true.
Too bright. It would be my take on it, but
yeah.
theirs would be that you might write about them or what have you. So you would be an extremely difficult. So I thought, hang on a minute, you want 20,000 and you might get me a date, but you're not going to promise it leads anywhere. I'd rather have an extension.
Well, I did sign up with an agency locally, and it wasn't very expensive. And I spent a long time with her, and at the end she said, I think it'd be very, very difficult with you. I'll just charge you half. I mean, it was £500. And I said, no, I insist.
Oh.
I had one date.
Oh, God.
There were a couple of totally unsuitables. And I never heard from her again.
Oh, God. Well, let's get our expert in. Maybe
Yes.
she'll give us a different take on it.
I just wanna get out of here.
Jan, please say hello to our life coach,
Hi.
Michelle Ellman, who's published books, but she's also an expert on various TV shows. But you were also listening to Jan chatting to us earlier on. Any initial knee-jerk reactions to what she was saying?
Yeah, I feel like what you've lived through is exactly the same as so many people in the world, because unfortunately we are attracted to the familiar. So we tend to follow the same patterns. A pattern isn't a coincidence. And stereotypically, although this could be debatable, you tend to be attracted to the parent of the opposite sex. This is a very old school point of view. But you were saying you put your father on the pedestal, which tends to, how that relates into your romantic relationships is the men you date either can't live up to them or you're not seeing the full picture, because when you put someone on a pedestal, you're not seeing the reality of them. You're glamorizing them, so you only see the good stuff.
Possibly. I do remember, I have humble beginnings, and my father and I had a bedroom with twin beds. And I do remember once crawling into his bed, for a cuddle, and he said, "Fanny, you're too old now, out."
Oh.
Yeah.
How old were you?
I was 11, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I was 11.
I think also you mentioned boarding school at 11. I went to boarding school at 11.
Awful.
Unfortunately, boarding school leaves a lot of abandonment issues, whether parents mean to or not. It's something that actually I don't think was really understood when even I got sent to boarding school, and is only really being understood now.
Interesting about boarding school, because I was only there a year and I hated it. It was a convent school, and actually I stayed on as a day girl when my mother came back to look after me. And there was one nun who I adored and stayed in contact with, but very often, no, they were very cold, very cold. And yes, as I grew older, I felt that my father had abandoned me when he went to Singapore. He had to. He was military. He would do 3 years, or then military service. And when he went away, I never got to the bottom of it. My mother thought or said that on the steps of the divorce court, he said, "When I come back from Singapore, I will remarry you." Now, I think my mother believed that. I don't know, maybe she made it up. He came back, I was 15, he was married. So I was abandoned twice, when he went to Singapore and when he came back with a stepmother. I was 15, I wasn't bolshy, but and then they had a baby, and I couldn't go to university or drama school because there was no money. That's very
Can I pick up on
interesting.
something you said, because I see it in myself, if I'm honest? An empath.
Yes.
And
So
empathetic.
Too much
empathy with bad behaviour.
Yes, because the other thing is, I think maybe I hang on and still give friendship because I always feel it was my fault. It's my fault that it hasn't. It isn't.
And logically and rationally, you know that, but the 11-year-old in you likely doesn't know that. And I think that's the part of, so how empaths are born is usually that you believe, if you don't feel good enough, you think if you do enough and you give enough to someone, you will become worthy. So all of my needs and my wants and desires are unimportant, but if I bend over backwards and give everything of myself, all my energy, all my time, and also ignore everything that I want, then maybe you'll love me enough, is the mentality behind it.
Pheromones, you guys have mentioned it a lot, and it's hard to justify it, describe it. What's your take on the pheromone issue?
I do think there is, especially around kissing, that I've always believed you can't fix kissing. If the first kiss is no good, then you can fix a lot in the bedroom, and when it comes to sex, like, there is a lot about learning each other's bodies, learning each other's tastes, but if you don't want to kiss them, there's very little that can be done after that.
Thank you.
It's true.
That's true.
It's true, because a long time ago there was a very, very, very nice man who was dead keen on me and wanted to marry me. And I tried everything in the book. I didn't want to say, look, physically you just, no. And I tried everything to be kind. I do try to be kind. And eventually I said, well, look, I'm so sorry, but the pheromones are missing. He didn't understand that at all, because I don't think men understand what we mean by pheromones.
I've had the same conversation. I
you?
call it pixie dust. I go, there's no pixie dust. And they're like, sorry, pixie dust? There's no pixie
Some people
dust.
say spark, some people say chemistry. Like, there are many words for it. But I even think you can find someone physically
a man will
attractive.
just say, I fancy them and I want to do things to them.
Well, but that's also two different things. This is where I think sometimes you can, on paper, find someone attractive. You can think they're a model, think they're gorgeous, and still just sexually not really feel anything more than that. Like, even if you can see their beauty, you still might not have that spark. You might not, and that's where sometimes it can be confusing to people, because they're like, but I can see they're attractive, so why do I not feel anything?
When I interviewed Omar Sharif,
he's come out twice now.
Wow. And Donnie McLeod should have done the interview, but he was fog-bound in
Omar
Aberdeen.
Sharif was the
You're too young.
hunky
Oh.
Peter O'Toole, like
Yeah.
the Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt of the time.
Anyway, Donnie couldn't do the interview. Researcher came in. I was waiting for somebody else, and she said, "Could you run down and do the interview?" Well, I was gone. If you know television, you finish the interview and then they do the noddies, which is where they have to, I don't know nowadays, but they used to have to cut the sound in the film to match. So I was doing the noddies, you know, sort of, and repeating my questions. And then there was a break, and the boys knew I wanted a video. And in that break, he said, "Jan, are you married?" And I said, "No, divorced." And he said, "Oh, why?" I said, "Oh, I always fall for the wrong men." Anyway, that was that. We said goodbye, off he went. But because I'd recorded it, pre-recorded, my boss gave me the next day off. When I got back, the researcher on the Friday said, "Oh, Jan, Omar Sharif phoned up yesterday to talk to you." And I'm sorry, I openly admit it would have probably only been once. I would have gone to lunch or dinner or anything.
Did
with
you
that
not
man.
try and call him back?
How could I? Oh, no,
What do you
no.
mean?
Now that's where perhaps
Hello?
I'm a
But
coward.
see, this is where I don't know who this man is, but what you've told me, all the information I have, is this man's a huge gambler. So
No.
why would you go for lunch with him?
Oh,
if
you
you
have
s-
to
yeah,
look
if you
him
saw-
up.
Oh,
He's like
sorry.
Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
I
turning
get
up
that.
with
It
a
would
I
bang.
never
mean-
have gone anywhere. He was wildly, he was so bright, and I'm not.
Oh,
But-
please.
Oh,
but-
please.
Come on.
Yeah, no, I
I-
don't think that would
I
be the
don't have a
reason it wouldn't
degree
go
in,
anywhere.
But I openly admit I would have gone to lunch or dinner with him, and if he'd asked me to
Can
go
I
to
just
bed,
say,
I
you
would
would
have
not
done.
get to your point in your career if you were not bright. And that's probably the part where you're going into your dating life underestimating who you are and coming to the dates and not bringing what's...
It's a very good point, because you're on parity to Omar Sharif because you're interviewing him as a contemporary. So that wouldn't have
Exactly.
happened if you were at a bus stop.
Michelle.
I mean, he rang up. Why do you think he rang up?
Well, I don't know, but
I
but
believe
there
it's
was
your
There was
job.
no way I could have got. I mean, he was touring, and the
Doesn't
researcher
matter.
hadn't got his
Why
number.
I would
is
have
it
got
so
myself
unbelievable?
there.
Because I'm not somebody who will ever approach a man.
Because you don't think you are somebody who
No, I
is
don't
worthy
think
of
women-
some...
I'm old-fashioned. I'm nearly
You
83.
don't have to approach him. He
I-
approached you.
Yes,
You
but-
called
but-
up.
Yes, but I couldn't have. What pretense could I? Oh, hello, Omar. It's Jan. Oh, yes. Do you remember
I'm
me?
calling
I
you
was in the
back.
street-
Well, he does
No,
remember you 'cause
he
he
rang. He rang.
I'm calling
He
you
rang.
back. I'm following up on your
Oh.
call.
I should have known you then. I would have rung.
Right, I think it is now time on that bombshell, that Omar Sharif bombshell, to do the Fishbowl of Truth.
I think
And I
I'm the
met
only
him again.
person he didn't ask.
Hold
out.
on.
I met him again.
You met him again, and
A few years before he died, I was in France with friends. No, I was going to Barcelona to a conference, and somebody wanted to stop off in France to look at property. And these estate agents who were Irish girls said, "Oh, glory be, you must go to Saint Collioure. It's a lovely place for lunch." Anyway, we went, and it was fermé les vacances. So we moved into the square, and then this man came, a young man, and said, "Could you move back? We're filming." And I said, you know, me being an interviewer, I said, "What are you filming?" "Oh, it's a film and with Omar Sharif." And I went, "Ooh." Told him the story. He said, "Would you like to meet him? Is the Pope a Catholic?" So he took me over the barrier, and honestly, for those 2 minutes I was with Omar, he wouldn't have remembered me. It was as if I was the only woman in the world. And I have a picture of that, and that is framed and on my... Well, I haven't got a mantelpiece.
I'm glad it had a half happy ending.
Half happy.
And I just wanna get out of here.
Jan, you are our VIP guest, so you get to go first on the Fishbowl of Truth.
We all
There you go.
answer, so don't
Oh,
worry.
look at that. That's you were taking two then, Jan. You can have two.
Well, I thought I had to. Oh, what is the best compliment someone has given you on a date? Oh.
Oh.
Do you know, I honestly can't think. I mean, you know, they say,
Well, I
"Oh,
can,
you're
but it's
you're
not very complimentary or should be said
you're
out loud."
beautiful,"
Mine,
and things like that.
I get on a lot of dates where people, "Oh, you're much funnier than I thought you would be,"
Oh,
which is
you
like
are
a bit
actually.
Half compliment.
Exactly, isn't
Was
it?
that me?
Well, it just means that I look really unfunny normally.
My best compliment I've ever been given was on a date, and he said I was forever fascinating.
Oh.
And I've never forgotten that.
That's
Yeah.
lovely.
So lovely. Also,
Ah.
because
Was
there's something
lovely.
meaningful about it
Yes.
not being a visual thing.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a good
That
title
is
for a
good.
book.
Okay. Do you believe in the one who got away? No. If they got away, it was for a good reason, I'm pretty sure.
I
Yeah,
agree.
yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
Yeah.
completely agree. Do you believe in 5 marriages, ex-marriages, ex-partnerships? Do you believe it's better to have loved and lost than not loved at all?
100%.
Yes, I would agree.
Yeah.
I
I would
really
go
would
through all
agree.
the
For
pain.
all the
Me
pain,
too.
I still would rather have loved.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even pets.
Yes,
Oh,
especially
yes.
pets. Michelle.
What date do you still think about?
The next one.
Yeah, he's got a date this evening and you're very excited.
I haven't had a date for so long, I really don't know.
Oh.
Is there one you daydream about sometimes, or you think back to a lot?
Not really. No, there'd be quite a few.
How about you?
Yeah, I don't think about it a lot, but the most amazing date I ever went on was amazingly after I split from the one that I was shattered me. It took me to Miami for New Year's Eve, about 4 months after I'd split, and we spent it on a yacht. It was,
Wow.
Oh,
and I still
magic.
thank him for that because
Gosh.
I could have been just crying into a gin watching television, and I wasn't. I was drinking champagne on a yacht.
How
and
lovely.
See, if that had happened to
Yeah.
me, flying out on
You'd
a...
have married him.
They'd have asked me to carry a bag full of drugs to get through to be able to go to Miami. So why didn't you go out with him again then?
I did. It was the 5 years French one.
Oh,
Yeah.
French.
See, there we go.
French. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Not want to say it.
Have you ever been unsure if you were on a date? Well,
What does that mean?
I think I would take that as a bloke that sometimes men are much worse at reading the situation than women.
Yeah.
And men might be unsure that a girl is flirting with them or not. So it might not be the date itself, but you think, it's like some girl might be flirting with you and you'll be like, stop a second, my mate says somebody fancies me, just stop a second. Oh, it's her. You just don't know the situation.
I
You
once
are
had a
funny.
date.
Yeah.
I had a 6-hour date. I wasn't sure was a date.
A
And
6
it-
hours?
6 hours?
It took 6 hours for me to figure out it was a date, but it was because my friend said, "Oh, it was a guy from America," and he'd come over. We were sitting in the pub, and my friend went, "Oh, Michelle will show you around tomorrow," and I was like, "Okay," and then I was like, "Oh, it's just a friend's thing," and then he made some innuendo that I went, "Wait, what have you said to him privately?" And so we met at the tube station at 3:00, and the whole day I was like, am I just showing you around? Am I just being your tour guide, or is this a date? And then it was at 9:00, we went for dinner. He reached his hand across the table, put his hand on mine, and went, "Oh, this is a date, but it's taken me 6 hours to figure it out."
Oh, that's lovely.
Or maybe it wasn't a date to begin with, but
Yeah,
he
maybe.
found
Yeah.
and
He might not have gone
progressed.
into it decided either.
Yeah.
But I remember, it does make me laugh. It took me 6 hours to be like...
Oh, that's lovely.
I would say you are quite bad at reading signs, actually. I think it misses you that 90% of women fancy you.
90%.
I would say so.
Bloody hell. That's
You're
a
very
high...
fanciable.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's very
You are.
nice. Yeah, but we're in a certain circle of people, aren't we? We're all of a
Well,
certain,
that's true.
You know.
And I also think most people are bad at reading the signs because you wouldn't believe that celebrity, I forgot his name already, but that
Omar
celebrity was
Sharif.
interested in you. Why would you call up after if you weren't?
Well, yeah.
I've never forgotten it.
And on that bombshell, join us for the next Suddenly Single.
Yeah. Just wanna get out of here. Woke up feeling good.
On the next episode of Suddenly Single, we have dating expert Candice Gallagher, who's been dating as far afield as Singapore and now London.